Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is March 25th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. So we had quite a bit of news breaking over the weekend. Obviously, the Mueller Report wrapped up. That was turned over to the Attorney General, William Barr. William Barr also, as we were hoping he would, did provide a summary to the leaders of the House and to the leaders of the Senate. And so we will definitely be diving into that a little bit. We had some news across the pond still with Brexit. There was actually one of the largest protests and marches ever in London over the weekend in regards to Brexit. This had to do not with people who want to leave, but with those who want to stay. So there is a call for a second referendum amongst a very large constituency. What's going to happen? Well, if you follow this program, you know that I am very much against a second referendum. The people voted back in 2016. It's going on 3 years. That's it. They won the game. It would be great if the losing team of the Super Bowl get to say, oh, well, let's play another game and see. And that one, whoever wins the second game, that one's really the winner. That's not quite how it works. It's not quite how it works. And there is a big cry by those who want to remain in the EU saying, well, this is democracy, isn't it? What happens if we want to change our mind? Well, some of you want to change your mind. In fact, you're still on the losing side of that vote. So that becomes a very slippery slope to say, well, we changed our mind. You didn't change your mind. It's a question as to whether or not the entire country did, and that is going to remain up in the air because you already voted back in 2016. You don't get another crack at it. If this turns out to be a catastrophic mess that a lot of people think it's going to be. I don't think this will be a catastrophic mess. Again, the British people survived World War I. They survived World War II. They survived a whole host of other things, domestically, internationally. They will get through this. They will most definitely get through it. Will it be bumpy? I'm sure it will be bumpy. For how long is the question? How severe is the question? Those remain the unknowns. But this is becoming a political mess. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There are people who obviously want to remain. There are people who want to leave. I'm sure there are people who voted to leave back in 2016 who now want to stay, and vice versa. So, net, what happens? How would that vote come out? Well, it better not come out to another vote, to another second referendum. They already voted. Now it's the job and the duty of the government to make it so. And they're struggling royally to make it happen. Royally. So, what happened today? Well, British Parliament actually I use that in quotations, seized control from Theresa May in sort of taking over what happens next. Because we all know that Theresa May brought forth a vote back in January for her deal. It got struck down. She lost. As a result of that, there was a call for a vote of no confidence. She survived it. Then just a couple of weeks ago, she brought forth another deal, very similar to the other one, but some material changes. And so it was brought before the House, and that too got shut down. It wasn't as bad of a beat. In fact, you have to remember that the beat that she sustained back in January was the worst in all of the history of Parliament. So that was crushing defeat for her initial deal. Not much better on the one that did not pass again back in March, just a couple of weeks ago, but at least in the right direction. Then you had the drama last week with the Speaker of Parliament coming out and saying, look, if the Prime Minister does not materially change her deal like she did from January to March, then this House will not vote for the same exact deal because it is a waste of time. The House already spoke. They said we don't want it. You now have to materially change it. So that threw another wrench into the Prime Minister's plan. Then she was off to Brussels again to meet with her counterparts in the EU to try to salvage a deal, to try to get an extension. Well, she wanted an extension out till June 30th. She did not get it. She got an extension out to May 22nd. Why May 22nd? Because May 23rd is the start of EU parliamentary elections. And the EU does not want to have these shenanigans taking place when Brexit should be over. Because you have to remember the first deadline is only 4 days away, March 29th. But that is now kicked down the road further to potentially May 22nd. May 22nd, contingent upon Theresa May's deal passing this week. If it doesn't pass this week, then she has to go back to Brussels by April 12th to say, what are we going to do? We have to have another plan, and that's going to pass. And if that doesn't pass, then that's pretty much it. So what is the EU saying? They're preparing for a hard Brexit. They're preparing for a no-deal Brexit. So is that what's going to happen? That seems more and more likely that it's going to be a no-deal Brexit. It's going to get interesting. It's going to be very interesting because you have to remember that was something that Parliament just voted on last week too, that they said, nope, we don't want a no-deal Brexit. Well, if you can't get her deal passed this week, if it's even going to be allowed to come to a vote, how is it going to pass? How is she going to change anything significantly? So that's why the members of the British Parliament today voted to take some of this power away from the Prime Minister. Now, again, I am not a parliamentarian. I am not an expert on British politics, but it appears that even though that they won that vote, that amendment to take some of that power away from the Prime Minister, I guess it still actually is in the hands of the Prime Minister as to whether or not she is going to honor the vote of the House of Commons or if she is going to continue doing whatever it is she wants to do. So she's in between a rock and a hard place here. She's had one of the largest marches against her, obviously. She now has the House of Commons against her in a large part. They at least want some other type of deal, not what she has. That should be crystal clear to her. So again, I don't know if she's playing some type of cynical game behind the scenes. You have to remember, folks, she was a Remainer. She did not vote to leave. You also have to understand that the Speaker of Parliament also voted to remain. He didn't want to leave. So there could be some backdoor, closed door shenanigans taking place. I hope that's not the case, because at least Theresa May, and I've given her credit here many, many times over, that she is at least saying the right things, that the people voted. We have to respect the will and the voice of the British people. That's why I've been a critic to saying if this goes to a second amendment, to a second referendum, that's a total insult to the British people, to the institution of democracy. And if that does, in fact, happen, that the British people better revolt. Because there are not too many countries left on the face of this planet that believe in these types of institutions. They just don't. They just don't. The UK, a lot of Western Europe, although that's diminishing. Here in the United States, although that's seemingly diminishing. I mean, once this gets taken away, what type of model for a government are we going to have? Are we going to more resemble Russia, Venezuela, China? I mean, those aren't countries I want to live in. And I highly doubt those are countries that you want to live in too. So what is Theresa May going to do? This is going to be very, very interesting over the next coming days because she has basically a gun to her head. It's this week. If she can't get something passed, then it's the April 12th deadline that has to have something done, or it's going to be a hard Brexit. And I have to remind you guys that I think that that's what the EU actually wants. I think they want a hard Brexit because that's the worst case scenario. So it should scare to death everybody else in the EU who might actually be thinking of leaving, whether that's the Greeks, the Italians, the French, some of the other countries on the periphery. Don't do it. Don't you dare do it because look what's going to happen. We have this country, the UK, huge country, huge economy. Things aren't working out. So you better take your notes and just get in line and take your orders. That's most definitely what they want. I'm not going to bend from that because that's what I honestly believe. So we will continue to monitor this. We will continue to see what happens. But this is global. This is global. And it not only has political implications, it most definitely has economic implications, not just for the British people, but for all of Europe, especially the Eurozone, especially the EU, and it will have ripple effects across the world. United States, Asia, everywhere. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. And if you follow me on the Economic Podcast, you most definitely have a better understanding as to why that is. And it's not easy to understand all of those intricacies. because they're delicate. A lot of times, some of them make perfect sense, some of them don't, because, again, when you look at the economy, it's like a piece of the puzzle. The two opposite points on the angles, top left, bottom right, still part of the puzzle, but they're not touching. So you kind of have to get creative in how they make a connection. But that's how you have to look at it. So some things that we might not expect could possibly happen, especially if it is a hard Brexit. But at the end of the day, the British people will be fine. They will be fine. It's just a matter of how long it takes them to get back on their feet, how severe some of these things might actually be. I don't think they're going to be that severe, to be honest with you, unless, again, there's some sort of wheeling and dealing behind the scenes that puts a big hurt on somebody. But we'll have to keep you posted on that. Now, some of the other news over the weekend obviously has to deal with President Trump feeling vindicated, feeling completely and totally exonerated. I'm sure the man is on cloud nine. He has been telling us it has been a witch hunt. We know it has been a witch hunt, and nothing was found. Nothing was found. There was no collusion, no conspiracy with Russia between President Trump, his campaign, his administration, nobody. When it comes to obstruction of justice, the Justice Department found that there was not enough evidence to move forward on any grounds on obstruction of justice. However, according to Bill Barr's statement and his summary of the findings, it does not exonerate the president. But nevertheless, the president's out saying he is completely and fully exonerated. That's what the president does. That's his style. Even if he loses, he wins. He says he wins. It's just his style. There's a couple good documentaries on him. If you take the time to watch, that's just part of his style. That's how he's been operating for the past 30, 40 years of his life. Even if and when he loses, he claims he wins. That's what he does. He's 70-something years old. He is not going to change his spots. He is not going to change his stripes. That's just who he is. Love him or hate him, get used to it. I'm not a huge fan of that style, but that's me. A lot of people like it. I mean, sometimes I even laugh at it because it is comical. It really is. I don't think it does him much good, but that's what he does. Now, the typical names were also out in full force after this report came out, after the summary came out from the Attorney General Bill Barr, such as Jerry Nadler. Jerry Nadler, Democrat from New York. He was out, gave a mini press conference following the release saying, look, the president's claiming he is exonerated. He is not exonerated. He stated what I just stated to you. This is what he does. The president knows how to get under these people's skin. Knows how to put salt on an open wound. That's what he does. So here's Jerry Nadler. This report comes out, finds nothing, is not going to prosecute, is not even indicting anybody else, even somebody lower on the totem pole. It's kaput. It's done. Whoever's been charged, whoever's been convicted, that's it. Bob Mueller is done. Jerry Nadler couldn't care less. Could not care less. We know this. We predicted this. So Jerry Nadler is going to continue his investigations because of some of that language in that report, that there was not enough evidence to convict or to indict the president or anybody else, but it doesn't exonerate him. So that's a little bit of a window for these Democrats to continue on with their lunacy, to continue investigating the president. So that's what they're going to do. They see a little opening, they're going to take it. Give them an inch, they take a mile, they take 10 miles. That's what Jerry Nadler is going to do. Now, it's interesting to see that we did not hear from little Adam Schiff. Where's he been? The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Where has he been? Because he's usually one of the loudest opponents of President Trump and for these investigations. So we'll see what's up his sleeve, if anything. But Jerry Nadler is at least out in full force saying, look, we're going to continue going after this guy, the President of the United States. So I highly doubt that Jerry Nadler will do a 180 anytime soon and say, okay, you know what? This country has to heal. We got to tone it down. We got to do something for this country. We have a whole bunch of issues that are facing us now that are going to continue facing us. We have to tackle these things. We have $22 trillion in debt. We have Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, unfunded liabilities, poor demographics. We have a whole host of things. We have poor infrastructure. We have immigration. We have a crisis that we're dealing with in Venezuela. We have Syria. We have China trade deals. We have a whole host of things that need to be done. But they don't want to talk about that stuff. They don't want to be constructive. They want to continue to go after the President of the United States and make everything political. Now you have to remember, we've already kicked off the 2020 presidential campaign. It's already in full swing. We've already had a lot of the lunatics out saying they want the report. And not only do they want the report, but even Crazy Bernie's like, we want the whole damn report. I don't want just some of it. I want the whole damn report. Well, I don't care what you want, Bernie. And you know perfectly well you're not going to get the whole report. You're not. The president is likely to take advantage of executive privilege. I can only imagine, common sense would tell us that there was probably some sort of classified information involved with all of this. So sources and methods, that stuff's not going to be open to the public. That will remain redacted. So what are you calling for the whole report to be released for when you know perfectly well it won't be? Oh, that's right, because a lot of your lunatics who follow you don't understand that. They don't understand that. So that's what they are going to continue to push. That's the propaganda, taking advantage of people who don't understand the law, who don't take the time to understand the law, or to think for themselves, oh yeah, you know what, this was really high level. I mean, this was the President of the United States, this is the Department of Justice. They're probably talking about classified information. Yeah, no problem. Just release it all. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. You could be putting people's lives in danger if, in fact, that's how dangerous this is. I imagine there are probably some sources and methods that might be in that camp. So I'm not going to be upset if there are things that are redacted. I'm honestly not, because we already know that there is nothing there. If there was something more, Bob Mueller would say there's going to be further indictments. But there isn't. It's it. This is just a hissy fit. We are going to continue to see and hear the hissy fit from the Democrats, from the mainstream media. It's already April for all intents and purposes. I imagine at least another month we're going to continue to have their hissy fit. We're going to continue for them to look for every little nook and cranny, every little door, every little window that they can stick their heads through to see if they can go down that corridor and open up another investigation with something else. Because we know Jerry Nadler's going to continue. I can only imagine that Adam Schiff will continue. I can only imagine that Elijah Cummings will continue. I can only imagine that Maxine Waters will continue her investigation. And we had Chuck and Nancy out also over the weekend saying they pretty much want the whole report released as well, too. So there's no end in sight in this. None whatsoever. So this will continue for a month. And then we might have some subpoenas by various House committees in regards to getting either and/or Attorney General Bill Barr to testify and/or Bob Mueller. Because we want the truth. We want the whole truth and nothing but the truth. These Democrats, that's what they want. Well, if they want the whole truth, then are they going to say that it was actually Hillary Clinton, her campaign, the DNC, and Fusion GPS, who funded this dossier that kickstarted all this stuff that's proving to be false more and more every day? That the guy that they said who wrote it, Christopher Steele, maybe had nothing to do with it? He was just a go-between? That this all might have been written from a political research, opposition research firm, Fusion GPS, with money from Hillary Clinton in the DNC? I mean, that's the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Do the Democrats care? No, they don't care, because it's not Donald Trump. They're not going to be able to crucify Donald Trump to that. And they sure as hell aren't going to go after Hillary Clinton or any other Democrat. So we're not going to get the truth from them. We are hopefully going to get the truth from Senator Lindsey Graham, because he is now the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I hope and pray to God from previous podcasts that the Clinton Foundation investigation is in full swing. I hope and pray to God that it is, because a lot of people had their lives ruined, and some people are going to spend the rest of their lives in jail, or at least a good majority of the years they have left of their lives in jail, for the same thing that there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that the Clinton Foundation is guilty of. From what we already know in the public record, we already know this. So if we're truly interested in justice, you just spent 2 years going after a man that has proven to be a witch hunt because there was nothing there, then you have to go after Bill and Hillary and the Clinton Foundation and a whole host of other characters. Don't forget the names. And there's a lot within the Obama administration, too. And you have to recall, if you paid attention to some previous podcast where we went over Lisa Page, the former attorney of the FBI, her testimony, that President Obama wanted to be kept up to date on everything. So he knows perfectly damn well what happened because he was kept in the loop on everything. So was Susan Rice. So was Samantha Powers. Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. All of these people. I really hope that once this all cools down, and again, I'm anticipating probably at least another month. They will get another month out of this at least, because we still don't have the full report. Or, I should say, a larger portion of the report. And that could take some time. There's a lot of information in there, what needs to be redacted, what will the White House claim as executive privilege, and then you're probably going to have some information come out that will not be very kind to the president, his campaign, and or his administration. So then you're going to have a rebuttal by the president and his legal team. So then there will be a debate on that. So this is at least another month of back and forth. What did the president say? What did he know? When did he know it? What did Donald Trump Jr. know? What did he say? It's going to be the whole cast of characters again. In the meantime, we will continue to have three-ring circuses in Congress, on C-SPAN, on the mainstream media. People being dragged up to the Capitol to be questioned on things that have already been investigated. Don't forget you have the Southern District of New York that is continuing to investigate President Trump, his organization, his charities, his campaign, his inauguration, whole host of things. A whole host of things in addition to what Congress is going after. So at least this is going to be another month. And I have to remind you guys and just state it for new listeners because I'm glad that this show is catching a following here. So if you haven't heard me say this before, you have to remember what the president said in his State of the Union speech because I believe this to be very important. Because the president takes credit for everything that he deems to be good and valuable, and he blames somebody else for the lows. He takes credit for the highs, blames everybody else for the lows. That's what he does. That's his style. So at the State of the Union, he said the only thing that can derail this economic miracle, and just a side note again, if you follow this program, you know that this is not an economic miracle, but from the standpoint and from the perspective of the president, he is claiming it is an economic miracle. So what did he say at the State of the Union? The only thing that can derail it is endless wars, political partisanship, and endless investigations. Well, the endless investigations are underway. So if this economy starts to tip, the stock market starts to tip, he's going to blame them. He's going to say, look what I did. I've been here. It's made record highs. It keeps going up, up, and up. You people, I told you, the markets love Trump. They love me. They love Trump. You keep going after me, they're not going to like it. So he's starting to do the Potomac two-step. He's starting to dance. He's starting to tell people, look, this market turns, this stock market turns. It ain't my fault. I came to do what I told you I was going to do. These people won't stop it. Trump derangement syndrome is real. And here you have it. Stock market's crashing, blah, blah, blah. It's going down. It's their fault, not mine. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people, especially his base. It will most definitely resonate with his base. That's what the president does. So be on the lookout for that. Stay tuned, everybody. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. You've had very little information come out, and we've already had a weekend of news and a full day with it. Nothing is even breaking. I mean, if you were watching March Madness, some of the basketball, or any golf, or anything, this was breaking news. This was breaking news. And of course, the headlines, I guess, to an extent they were. But that's really for the people who weren't paying attention or refused to be honest with themselves. If you pay attention to this program or other programs like it, you're intelligent. You understand who was conspiring or colluding with the Russians, or at least trying to make a story with the Russians. Well, that was the Democrats. That was Hillary Clinton. That was Fusion GPS. It was not Donald Trump. It was not his campaign. It is not his administration. This is sickening. It's sickening. But I really hope that we get our fireworks, that the president now says, once all of this stuff starts to calm down, oh, it's my turn. It's my turn. And he's going to have some of his allies in the Senate do some investigations on the names of the people that I'd mentioned previously, on the Democrats, people within the Obama administration, and says, okay, two can play at this game. You want to investigate me? I'm going to investigate you. And I bet that Donald Trump wins. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you as always. Please like, share, subscribe, get the word out. Stay tuned, stay informed. Buckle up. It's getting exciting. This is the Capitol News. I am Alex Koritis. Godspeed.